Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, my guest is the one and only Mr. Lucas English. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. Well, it's an absolute honor to have you on here. I've been following your Evo for a long time, and it was an honor to get to see you in action here at World Cup just a couple months ago. I know it didn't go as planned, but it was great to see you guys out there still doing it.
Yeah, we sure are.
So, even though you need no introduction, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are and a little about the Evo?
So I'm Lucas English with English Racing, and I don't even know. I believe it's a 2005 Evo is what it started out as. This car was actually initially bought by Paul Nelson, and if anybody remembers Evolution M, he was I Farted 2. Was his screen name on Evolution M back in 2007, 8, 9, 10. And so this car was the cover of the D-Sport magazine, made 1,000 horsepower 2009. And he went 890 on a synchro trans back then when it was kind of an AMS busher. And then I guess we were kind of at the end, but everybody was trying to get into the 8s back then. And then unfortunately the economy crashed, and right there, what was it, 10, 11, 12, and so the car ended up getting left with us, and Paul went in a different direction. And so then the car really just been pushed around and not done anything with the car until probably, I guess it'd be 16, 17, when I had a shop manager named Atif, who brought it back to life. And Atif, well, people don't know, but he's pretty good at building, or has a pretty good eye for building cars, and pretty picky on the way he wants to do it. So nice. He got this back together, and of course we really went on a weight savings spree, which the car was already pretty light to begin with. But Atif we bought has billet knuckles on it, has a billet steering rack, all the tubular subframes, titanium bolts everywhere it can have them. At the first event when we went 7s in it, the door even came off because it was probably a little bit too light. So I guess after Atif got done, we finished the car. Either way, we ended up getting to a point where I ended up having Miles drive our Evo 10. So I used to drive the Evo 10 when it was the clutch car, and then once it became the ETS car. And then I knew that to really give the Evo 8 the quality time, I needed to get out of the 10 and kind of get into the 8.
Okay.
And so that was at the end of 19, I believe, is when I did the 4 7s there back. Was that 8?
I think that was 18 because the 7-second bounty was around that time.
Right, so same time as that. So that summer is when I guess I made this. The summer of 18 is when I made the decision to, kind of start driving the car and really try to get it sorted out. And so, of course, right before World Cup Finals, I was at a test in June and October, and still on everybody says low boost, right? But either way, not trying that hard. The car was running low 8s, and we had a couple gremlins with intercooler pipes coming off and different stuff. So I felt like the 790 from a tuner's perspective and what I had seen should happen. And then, of course, on the way to World Cup Finals is when Rocco, I believe, went the 790 and took us out, or was the first into the 7th.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we proceeded that week. I did. Car was just on rails pretty much that first. We started out 8-1, and I did 2 or 3 8-0s and 7-9, 7-8, and then we did the 7-4 7-7s back to back, and then at that time, honestly, not much has changed since the first 7s, other than we were on the original 7685, and now the car is on the Gen 2 880, 85, I believe. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. So basically the newest 80 mil precision that everybody's running. And then when it first came out, it was on the FIC 2000s, and we were kind of at the end of the fuel system. So now it's on the ID 2650s. The car has had a billet block in and out of it. We've been going back and forth. I don't feel like the car needs the billet block necessarily. Like, we really haven't had an issue with the cast block, but the billet block is 70 pounds lighter.
Oh, wow.
But the car, in my opinion, is almost too light. Sometimes I wonder, like the Honda guys, maybe some strategic weight placement. But honestly, for how little time we've put into the car, I've been pretty impressed with what we've achieved.
For sure.
And of course, we were trying to, the thing a lot of people don't understand is English racing has really never owned any cars of their own. Like, I was, Extreme Turbo Systems car I drove, and then was the tuner in the beginning and stuff in the GTR, but a lot of people thought that was my car, and it was their car. And then all the Evo 10 is really ETS's car. Jeff Bush's 1G was 1G. So we really are here for the customer. So I've me as an owner and as a shop, we really don't have race cars that are like specifically a shop car like a lot of others. So we do own the Evo 8 now. We bought it from Odd Tip like a year ago, which is, if he still owned it, honestly, or a customer owned it, the car would probably get raced a little bit more. But it seems like, personal cars and shop cars are the first ones to go to the back burner over a customer car. So it's kind of a challenge.
Yeah. You got to put your customers first, so, that's understandable.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so I guess, it's a PPG, dog box and factory cases. It runs a Shep stage 4, whatever this transfer case with the I believe it has a wave track diff in it. It has just a stock Evo 9 rear diff in it. The car only weighs like 20. I think with me in it, it's 2,300 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty light. Like, we actually launched this car at, people wouldn't even believe it if they look at a data log, but it launches at like 4,800 RPM on like 20 pounds of boost, and I can over launch the car and make it bunny hop with more, so far, all of our cars are all-wheel drive. I wish we could get better 60 foots out of them, but the bunny hopping that everybody makes fun of is always, we've in every direction trying to get at that,
Oh, yeah.
And it's, Rafe, who currently has the record, his car is a little heavier, quite a bit heavier, and then of course he runs a little bigger tire, and then there is talk of maybe some people have some of the Honda drivetrain in some of these cars, which nobody's really talking about yet.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah, I guess for the future, though, the goal is maybe try to see if we could take Rafe out and get the record back.
Yeah.
Just trying to, and I really think the car has it in it, if I could just get the time to put into it. And we figured a lot of stuff out, though, with valve train issues and stuff that we, unfortunately, were battling, I think, 19 and 20 with some valve train and some tuning strategies that I wasn't quite happy with. So anyway, we've been pretty reliable on the motor until I guess the K1 crank broke on us, which is pretty unfortunate at this World Cup. So
that was just a freak accident. During practice there, that thing was leaving so hard. You were really on it.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was. It makes a lot of power. And that new, for example, I think 75 pounds of boost on the old turbo was 80% wastegate duty cycle and back pressure approaching 1-to-1, and now I think we're like 30% wastegate duty cycle for 70 pounds of boost, and the back pressure is like not even close to 1-to-1. So the power potential in the car is, that's maybe where I come back to the weight is more than the car can probably handle.
Yeah.
So
got to find a happy medium.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's kind of why we've been poking at some aero stuff. I don't know if you noticed, like we put a front splitter on it, and we put, a little bit of downforce in the back because the car was starting to lose traction in third gear. But we ended up putting 4 wheel speed sensors on it and realized, it was the right front tire that was blowing loose on us. And so we kind of did some suspension changes. So seemingly we got that to be better. And then, of course, we have the downforce, which once the car is sorted, then we play with maybe removing a little bit of that because it could slow us down. But either way, that's kind of, I think the car being so light kind of makes it a little bit more of a struggle for us.
But the aero on the Evo 10 that you were talking about earlier, that really helped cut out the bunny hopping and like you said, the down track stability. Yeah,
the down track. Even all of the cars though, once we get into the 1/360 foots, that's where the hop happens. So if we give them a soft launch and give them like a 1.40 60 foot, they're smooth as butter all day. But in reality, for the speeds of both of the cars, they need to be into the 120s. And so either way, the 1.3 that right now I feel, because like on a DSM, most everybody has like a welded differential. Right. So in theory, the car could pop a wheelie, or if the drivetrain components could handle it. And believe it or not, it seems like a DSM transfer case is stronger than an Evo transfer case, even though the Evo transfer case in size is like, 4 times bigger?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
But something about the way the ring gear, it runs on the wrong side of the ring gear, and then the way that it's actually more stressful on the ring and pinion than like a DSM is. So that's all these Evos are still running an open diff in them, and so then you just really, it's hard to tune them because you don't know where the power is going.
Yeah.
And so that's where some of the argument of the Hondas is, they're a front wheel drive car, and then the slip is in the drive line. And so then there's been theories that maybe that, because as soon as the differential in the Evo is just like a front wheel drive car, left to right, but front to rear, so there's like a 2-to-1 speed up. So like if the back hooks, the front can take off. And then if the front hooks, the power can go to the back. And it's like that little power transfer of the line, I feel is part of what starts the bunny hop procedure, And then our cars run an ACD, which most people don't. If we really crank on that, we can get it better. But then we seemingly start to break rear ends, and we start to break transfer cases if we make it too locked up. So, But anyway, but ultimately we need time. I mean, the car, in reality, that the first 770s we ran, the car might have had 25 or 30 hits under its belt from completion to that achievement.
No kidding.
Where a lot of guys are, they're up into the 50, 60 hit range, to sort things out.
For sure.
We just haven't.
Lucas, wasn't it last year at Texas 2K you guys were running 8s right off the trailer?
Right. So, yeah, I did one, 8.0 right off the trailer. Then I did 770, and then we've been battling a transmission issue where I keep bending the 3/4 shift rail. And now I've somewhat attributed it to the shift. We put a lot shorter shifter in it, and so my current train of thought is I'm just overpowering the thing, I guess He-manning it or whatever. Of course, and initially the PPG gear set has some issues on its stack height, and so we were doing this modification, that other people were doing, and that modification. But then seemingly with everybody's modifications, we are still, we'll see this next time I fixed it at the track at World Cup again, And then we did another modification with the shorter shifter, and I made the one pass, and then the crankshaft broke the next pass. So anyway, that's also been a little bit of an annoying nemesis for us. But we may, that has KDN. So a lot of the Evo, we like the guys. The shifters really is pretty awesome with its features. So we're made it shorter, but a lot of the guys out there run actually factory cables with factory shifters, and then they do the Wii's special little knob that goes onto the lockout that you put into the shifter. And so one of the theories is having like the stock rubber bushings and all that stuff kind of helps soften the abuse on the transmission. With the KDN, you're really pretty direct with the thing. So your abuse pretty much doesn't have any padding per se. So, but I have hope that the shorter, because we actually got the shifter at World Cup that they gave to us, which is really cool of them to do, and so made the shifter about 2 inches shorter, and so then I'm hoping that removes some of the leverage. When I'm pulling like He-Man, I guess I'm not pulling it that hard.
Right.
So
to break everything.
Right. So, because what keeps happening is you slam 2 to 3, and then that shift, it bends the rail. And then you go to slam 4th, and then it doesn't go in because it can't fully engage the dog.
Okay.
So that's been the nemesis a bit. But hopefully, honestly, we're trying to maybe get it out just more local, just because driving across the country to all these races is just really expensive.
Oh yeah.
And then for me to be at a race and then have customer cars there is just really not healthy sometimes, because then I'm trying to focus on myself, but if you have customer cars there, and so then trying to and then if you're charging them to work on their car, if you don't give the right attention, then pretty soon that turns into unhappy customers. So
just racing alone's a lot to do in a weekend.
Right. Yeah, well, since I can haul 6 cars when I end up at an event, we end up with, I can have 5 to 6 cars or whatever that I'm running between, with either helping or actually tuning or whatever. So it gets. But yeah, we're hoping this summer we'll get it out and kind of start poking at the record a little more, and we might do some experimental stuff with the drivetrain to see if we can, because if I could get the thing into the 120s and a 60-foot, then the thing would just be a rocket ship. I mean, it would do everything we want. So right now, they say every 10th off the 60-foot is, a good couple tenths off the back end.
Right.
So if you can't get that 60-foot in the 8th mile right, then you really have to pour the power in to try to get the time. And so hopefully we can get that short track.
That's what a lot of people have been telling me over the off season. Their plan for this year is to work on the 60-foot. So. Right.
Yeah. I think now too, maybe with the no prep and like the 8th mile racing is actually a lot more popular these days. So I think people are actually doing a better job of fixating on that number, because they realize now, you see it all the time. We have a car that rolls out and then lets off like after the 8th, and the thing darn near runs within 2 or 3 tenths of its normal time. 30 miles an hour less speed. Yeah. So it really proves that the key to drag racing is the 8th mile and the 60-foot and the short track, and then the back end is just icing on the cake, I guess. But if you
just for show,
right. But yeah, if you don't get the front half figured out, then nothing works out on the leaderboard anyway. So
this episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Darren Thomas Racing. They're an automotive performance and engine service shop located in the Oklahoma City metro area. They have specialized in the DSM platform for the last 20 years, but are not limited to only DSMs. They offer in-house machine work, full performance builds, repairs, and tuning. They are best known for their automatic transmission repairs and service. Some of the quickest auto Mitsubishis on our list rely on Darren Thomas Racing transmissions. Contact them on Instagram or Facebook at Darren Thomas Racing. So, Lucas, I'm curious as to what made you want to purchase the Evo after ATIF left. What was it that was like, all right, we're going to buy this and we're going to start taking it out more?
Well, I guess maybe a little bit of guilt. We ended up kind of doing a car swap situation with some money, so it's kind of complicated. But I would say ultimately, ATIF wasn't that interested in driving it. I'd been driving it. He really loves the sport and wants to see the car keep going.
Good.
And I don't think he was interested. So then it was just kind of the right decision, I guess, to buy it, And a little painful maybe, but it is what it is. And but I guess most people, I guess, have a pat when they go buy something. It's new and exciting, but of course, for us, we deal with so many cars.
Right.
It's kind of a little bit of a wash of what we own, and then who knows? For year, we do throw out a customer, somebody wanted to buy this car, and then we still maintained it, and they drove it. We've entertained that idea because that would be a way that it guarantee that we'd get it out there.
Yeah.
But as of right now, we have the billet block. Luckily, was fixable from the crank, so that's getting fixed right now.
Good.
We have our old cast block ready to go back into the car, which we're probably going to do, and just keep working on that short track and the 60-foot, and then the record may fall on that block, or when the billet one gets back together, it'll go in. So.
That'd be crazy to see a cast block take the record back.
Yeah, it would. So, but with how light that car is, I think Rafe's car is a good 300 or 400 pounds heavier. So he's really having to try really hard. And I guess, in my opinion, everything I've done in that car, I haven't tried that hard yet. So it's just been getting everything to work how I'm usually I attempt to be conservative, so typically I'll have everything pretty dialed back, and then once I get everything, the shifting and the launching and all the stuff working how I want, then I start, slowly twisting the power into it, because I'm a pretty firm believer if you overpower something or try too hard, then you don't get the data, and then you don't get to learn anything, and then it makes life a lot harder. So
that's fair.
Yeah, it's and I guess I'm kind of a data guy. I like really seeing like all the back pressures and the EGT and the shaft speed of the turbo, and what everything is doing, and then trying to be a little more scientific about how I'm trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Where a lot of guys are just throwing the kitchen sink at it and hope it works out.
Or throwing parts at it, yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's so yeah, that's one of the big things on that car is I do a lot of, it has drive-by-wire on it, and I have a lot of strategies with the throttle that allow me to control the power pretty precisely that I think a lot of other guys don't have that, and so then it makes their life a little harder.
Okay.
So, but
Lucas, I wanted to say we're seeing a lot of English racing customer Evos creeping their way up to the top of the lists. Right now we have one of your customer cars, number 3 on the Evo 10 list.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys have the number 1 Evo 10, and your Evo has been at the top of the list numerous times. So I just want to get from you what advice you would give someone who wants to get their Evo up towards the top of the MitsuTimes list.
Probably not to do it, but but it's a challenge. I guess it initially depends on what is their automotive background to start with. If a guy's pretty heavy duty car guy and has been racing and comes from another platform, especially a manual transmission, he probably can jump in pretty quick. If a guy is just a stock turbo car that's has the aspirations for climbing that list, it's fairly painful because the learning curve of driving the car, finding the right. I feel that some of my tuning strategies and setup were really proven and worked. That's why Miles' Integra, the Evo 10, all of our cars work, and they all honestly are on a very similar strategy that I guess I would at this point call fairly proven, to where
yeah.
I could have you or another guy honestly hop in a car and then with the lockout dump the clutch, and it all really works, and it's taken a lot of, so to do what we've done but not be us would probably, it's a lot of money and trying different things out,
Yeah.
So we have our recipe. The big thing though for people is the biggest thing I say is enjoy racing. The time slip chasing is one of the worst things you can get into, because you can, you get in a car that you just built at 700, 800, 900 horsepower, and a guy can run low nines in a quarter mile, which might be 2 seconds faster than he's ever been in his whole life, but he knows the rest of the world runs an 880 or something. And so then he looks at this stupid piece of paper and he's unhappy. Right? And it's just like, I guess I've always been a racer. I'm not really I have no problem like turning a car down. Like I raced my Suburban. I can race a 14-second car, a 10-second car. It doesn't matter. I like going to the track and racing. But most of these record chasers that are on your board, usually they're just dead fixated on moving themselves forward down the list, and so that, for one thing, means your car is super unreliable and it's going to be broken all the time. So then can you actually learn how to drive? Because you really need seat time to figure stuff out.
Can you afford it?
So, right, and then can you afford it? So I guess to start with is just like, get a good quality, like let's say you're on E85 fuel, just get your nice 30 pounds of boost, low timing, a tame launch, figure out how to slide the clutch right, and just go out to the track and have fun with your car, learn how to drive it, and then start looking at the numbers down the road. But I guess ultimately just learn how to have fun with what you have and not get all been out of shape that you're not doing what others are doing.
Yeah.
Because I would say a lot of my records fall when I'm not even trying. Like I'm just out there having a good time and poking at the stuff, and I don't even necessarily care about the record. I just and then you watch the guys that care about the records, like literally throw thousands upon $1,000s worth of parts. That's just not. As soon as I start breaking too much of the same part or something, I'm like, yeah, I need to, put the tools down and take a step back and like reevaluate what I'm doing. And so I guess I started off back in the day like more of a how fast can I go for how cheap with how little of parts. That was kind of my thing. Like I did the stock, I ran a 10.9 at 127 on a stock turbo and a full weight SSL Evo, back in 08, made like 522 horsepower, and then like my wife's 14B Eclipse on stock injectors, ran like a 12.3 at 110 back in the day, just basically like that little automatic Eclipse that we did is called Little Auto. Like that car went 10.3 on $1,800 with buying the car. So that stuff's always been actually a little entertaining to me. And I love fast, but throwing cubic dollars, it's kind of weird. I'm the guy that I guess is in the middle of people throwing cubic dollars, and then but I'm actually the guy that doesn't like that all the way. So but honestly, after I guess playing with GTRs the last few years, playing now with the Audi R8 a little bit, the Evo is an extremely cheap platform to race. Like really a dog box. I mess up that fourth gear I talked about. I'm like, it's a $400 gear, and real like I'm at like $700 and 4 hours of time, and I got the car fixed and back together. Where you go to these races where people are waxing GTR trannies and they're like literally like flushing $40,000 down a pass, every 7 or 8 passes. So I guess that might sound cocky or something at this point, but it does actually make there's a chance that we'll race Evo a bit more, just because it is actually, from a shop standpoint, a little bit cheaper of a car to race than some of these other ones. But yeah, for other people want to get into it, just biggest thing I say is enjoy the car, and then getting the right people to build the car though is just you can't stress it enough. The amount of stuff that we've learned, from the proper clearances to the proper head gasket setups to the proper tuning strategies, knowing like for me as a tuner on these cars, like a lot of tuners, they might expect a certain number out of a car, let's say on a dyno, and then of course there's a good chance maybe a combination in the car, like the cylinder head or the intake manifold or the turbo or the intercooler or exhaust system or some other problem, and then the tuner just sits there and like tunes it until it's broken. Versus just knowing where to stop. So I guess for me, I'm pretty good at knowing where to stop when we're tuning stuff. And of course, you look at like Miles's Integra, the reliability there, the Evo 10, all of that's been a evolution. I think the other thing is, since we do all of our own motor, we don't build motors or anything, but we build and assemble them, but we don't like have a machine shop.
Right.
But we do, I would say we do 70 some motors a year. We install like 90% of the motors, and if there's a problem, we're the one taking it apart, and it's usually we're looking in the mirror at our broken pieces and figuring out how not to make that happen again. Yeah. And I think a lot of guys are, they're using an MA motor, they're using a Busher motor, then they got like some Bob's machine shop around the corner, and then they're, they don't understand, oil coolers and contamination, powder coating valve covers and contamination, so many things can just destroy a motor if one little thing isn't cleaned correctly.
For sure.
So anyway, that's...
Lucas, when you're talking about the $40,000 GTR transmission, it makes me think back to World Cup when, a lot of the Evo guys, they were replacing drivetrain parts almost every pass, whereas, Miles was able to, just bring it back to the pits, let it cool down, and eventually drove it back onto the trailer at the end of the event.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of those guys are just, you just talk to them, and they're just like, they just have that send it attitude. Like literally, it's almost, I hate to say it, I know that they don't like fixing their shit, but it almost feels like they must like it somehow. I don't.
No one likes swapping engines in the pit, I hope.
Yeah, I hope. I don't know, but I sure see enough of it going on, and it sure makes me feel. But then I think a lot of the Evo guys too, like the Honda guy, like a lot of the Honda guys are real racers. Like there's all these good, like back in '09 when I started with Jeff Bush's car, like we'd be the fastest car at the event running like low eights, and we'd literally like make $500, and then the Honda guys running like 950s could make like $10,000, right?
Wow.
So just starting, and there's so many more of them way back then, that platform just got pushed, and so then the guys are more concerned about racing, where I think a lot of the Evo guys are really fixated on the record, so the cars just sit in the corner until the last minute, and then they like just go crazy to get them back together. They're like putting the car together in the trailers or going to the track.
Yeah.
And then they, no time on the dyno, no time anywhere, and then they proceed to like try to run the boost as high as it can go, and then they like break it literally on the first hit, and then they have no data, they have no idea what, and then they put it back together and just do it again, where like.
What you just said is why the shootout has so many oil downs.
Right. Yeah. It's just, they're just, in the platform, the way that, the all-wheel drive works is actually a frustrating car to drag race. That, if you watch Evos, they all kind of bunny hop around. I mean, if you
cut
really
left,
the
cut right. Yeah.
Yeah. Devin, the dog box DSMs in the last 10 years or whatever, 15, whatever, really move forward, but it just seemed like when like Jeff first started doing the automatic DSM, that was really the first glimmer of a DSM that could like go rounds and be reliable and consistent and win, and then honestly then the dog box guys started coming at it a bit more too, and they have their strategies also, but the Evos are just a little. So either way, we're poking at the bunny hop stuff. If a guy wants to run like, a 1.4 60 foots, and they can be fine drag racing, but there's just so much more on the table in the 60 foot. So figuring out how to get that down, and Rafe, I think, is the only guy I know that's consistently into the like low 1.3s, 120 range, where everybody else is kind of where we're at. Like high 1.3s, and then every once in a while they'll muster something that's cool, but that's like 1 out of 10 passes or something. And then because like a lot of our passes are botched too. We sit here trying to play with all these clutch slippers, but like if you look at a log from like Miles's Integra, like he can just over dump it and it like spins all 4 tires and like it's just smooth, and maybe it's slower, but no big deal, right? You just burned out and off you go. Well, the damn Evo, if you're on a prep track, as soon as you go to burn out like that, it just hops. And so then you have to like do it all on the clutch. Well, then you're sitting there, clutch like hold at night, the clutch fluid gets colder, and so then all of a sudden the clutch slips way more than you wanted, and so then you're sitting there screwing around with trying to find this magic slip point, and then you're like, well, maybe I should just drive the stupid thing and forget about all this junk, and that's anyway, yeah, it's
Lucas, would you say that taking a shot at the record is the goal for this year, or would you say the plan is just to go out there and compete at events?
I would say my style would just to tell you going out and having fun with the Evo is the plan, and then if the record happens to fall, then that's cool. So, and I know if I go out and tell you that's my goal, then I'm just really going to jinx myself. So that's probably not what I'm going to say. But we love Rafe. We're good friends with them. We buy parts from them. Actually, the billet block in the 8 we bought from Rafe. So he's definitely an awesome guy. So I think for anybody to be in competition with, he's a good guy to be in competition with. So that's kind of the goal.
So what events can we go out and see the car in action this year?
Right now my goal is probably just the Northwest. So it's going to be we usually do the IFOs.
Yeah.
So we have like 2 or 3. We usually have 2 IFOs. One in Seattle, 2 in Woodburn, Oregon. So I guess Seattle, Washington, and then Woodburn, Oregon. So Portland, Oregon, which I hate to say that word, and then Seattle, Washington would be the 2 places, and then we may try to slide some tests and tunes. The only problem with some of the IFOs is the track prep isn't that good at some of those.
Yeah.
But we also keep threatening. I've been doing some of the snow prep racing lately. Not really that successful at it, but that's been pretty fun. There's a lot more action there, a lot more drama, which I guess is good and bad at the same time. But it's real racing. You're not paper chasing. You're actually trying to beat the guy next to you, which is kind of been kind of different. So we've kind of also talked about maybe trying some of the no prep stuff.
Okay, cool.
And see if we can piss in some of their Wheaties possibly. But unfortunately, the Northwest is not that cool of a place for. I mean, we have tracks and stuff, but it's not like the Midwest or the East Coast. So,
do you foresee the Evo making it back out to World Cup this year?
For sure. That's typically yeah. And the goal, I'm assuming what'll happen is we'll get it together, June, July, and then try to get some quality, at least 2 or 3 events under our belt before we go to World Cup. Okay. And then we'll see where it goes.
Do you think FL2K, Texas 2K, or the shootout could be a possibility?
We all need to yell at the shootout. I used to love the shootout, and then we had that one year with a half-mile event at the same time with our customers, and so then we kind of spent 2 years not going to the shootout, and then of course, so I've never done FL2K. Florida, of course, is a 3,500-mile drive for us, so that's it's a lot of time. Those East Coast trips take me 3 weeks of my life usually by the time I get done driving out there racing and coming home. So those are so either way, the shootout is a very slight maybe. TX2K we're not taking it this year, just we have too many customer cars.
Okay.
And then so basically local in Washington and World Cup should be a for sure. And then I know they now have moved the shootout into, I believe, is it September to try to get some better conditions?
15th or the 17th, I want to say.
Yeah, so I know Mike, I'm friends with him, D-Sport, he's always trying to get us out there. So we may talk a little more seriously about that. So, but it's still 3,000, it's still a lot of driving to get out there for us. So, people think I do like driving, but 3 weeks of my life gone, it's kind of wears on a guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially when that's not your only 3-week trip.
Right, exactly. So, and if we get customers on board, but right now most of our customers don't want to spend quite that much money in transport.
Right.
And then we don't have any of them that are quite that serious. So anyway, we'll see though. We get our more serious customers were the half mile stuff, but the half miles kind of died off on us a little bit. So
yeah, I think like you said, we're starting to see half mile go away and eighth mile come back.
Yeah, strangely. Well, the half mile, the amount of power you have to make, and then it just really is abusive on the cars. So losing a motor at the half mile is, if you're trying to push it's pretty common, right? Because you're floored for 13 seconds straight at an astronomical amount of power, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, even the Evos, like we have that car, I believe I have the 4-door sedan record still in a half mile at the 214 miles an hour, I believe.
Yeah, I do believe you're right. I saw that when I was doing some research for this.
Yeah, and then the 10's like right there, like 213. So yeah, that we have that record there. The problem with both, like even the 10 with like the gearing and stuff, we'd have to start revving these cars,
right?
11,000 RPM to try to get that speed out of them, and then it's just anyway, we're kind of shying away from the half mile at the moment. So
okay. So Lucas, where can people find you and keep track of the Evo on social media?
So I guess I'll just run through everything. EnglishRacing.net is our website, which is usually a little bit outdated. We have a YouTube channel that we are a little slow to keep up on, but it's English Racing also. Then Instagram and Facebook, I guess, are our two most common day-to-day waste of time, which you can find us at English Racing on both Instagram and Facebook. And then I'm on Instagram as Lucas English Driver, and then just Lucas English on Facebook. And I'm always posting stuff about flying airplanes, driving semi-trucks, and the race cars and everything. So it's might be kind of boring to some people, but that's where you can find us.
Well, Lucas, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to for helping you out along the way and getting the Evo where it is?
I guess GSC Power Division is probably our biggest helper. They've done a lot. With the valve train, we've done a lot of the camshafts that everybody actually runs in our car. We've helped do the development on those and stuff. So, GSC. Back in the day, Extreme Turbo Systems was really helpful on this car. Not as much now, but they're help us in all of our cars. So, and then ID injectors, Precision Turbo, they help us out a lot. Guy named Dallas is who makes like the billet knuckles and stuff for it.
Well, Lucas, I want to say thank you for coming on and taking the time to do this. I'm glad that people are going to get to hear more of your story. I know it's been told a bunch of times, but some of the new Mitsubishi guys, maybe they can see you out there and maybe come out and see you in action.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So,
all right, Lucas. Well, thanks again, and I hope to see an update from you soon.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.